Alright, what's up everyone? Distinct Storm or Anthony here, back with another video. In this video we're continuing our Storytime series, so if you haven't seen the previous episode, I'll leave a link in the description to the playlist. In today's story, I'm going to tell you guys about how this kid on the FBI watch list with anger issues who went crazy throwing books, beating up old ladies, and assaulting little kids. Okay, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but could you imagine a midget with anger issues going around and just attacking people? I'm just joking everyone, but before we start this video, leave a like if you enjoy these types of videos and drop a comment of story ideas. If I've experienced it or something similar, I'll tell that story in a future video. Anyways, let's get into this. So this day was as always a normal Wednesday, which is one of our block days. This means Monday, Tuesday, and Friday we have our normal 1 through 7 classes, and on Wednesday we have our second hour, then T-Bird time, which is like an advisor base, then 4th and 6th hour. And on Thursday we have 1st hour, 3rd hour, 5th hour, and then 7th hour. This isn't anything too important, but since today was a Wednesday, we were in our classes for 2 hours instead of a normal 45-minute class period. Nothing else throughout the day really happened, so I'm just going to skip to English. At the time we were reading a book called Bless Me Ultima, and we were assigned to groups to read these books in teams. After we get our stuff done in the first half of class, we get into these groups and read. We have a decent amount of kids in our class, so we have a backup teacher, which is called a para. As I said in the previous video, and in English, we occasionally get flexible seating, so we immediately go over to the comfortable couch and chairs with the para, who's there to make sure we're on task and read to us if we want. We're going to call the kid who went crazy James. Well, I actually met and knew James back in 6th grade / middle school, before switching to the school district I'm in now. I went to middle school more downtown at the time. Well, this kid had always been snobby and weird, so he never had many friends from what I could tell. And back then, he got picked on because he would always wear this thick red coat, even if it was 90 degrees outside, everywhere he went, so kids would call him Red Coat like he was British. By the way, no, I do not condone bullying or people picking on others. As a person, I am cool with everyone until given a reason not to be. So with this being said, I remember the first time I ever seen this kid. I was at lunch with all my friends, and seen this kid sitting by himself, and there were a couple kids older than us roasting him and picking on him standing up across the table. So me being the 6th grader I was, I tell these 7th graders to leave the kid alone and let him eat his lunch, and they mean mugged me as they walked off. I looked at him and asked, "You cool?" He nodded, and so I sat back down and finished lunch. The next time I seen him a couple days later in the hallway, he had dropped his books and his schoolwork, and I mean this stuff was literally everywhere in front of me. Like there was probably 50 individual papers going from one wall to the other. And so I decided to help him because my class was right down the hallway, so I wasn't going to be late. I didn't have anything in my hands at the time other than a pencil, which I could just put in my pocket, and he just looked like he needed help. So I go help and ask, "Hey man, do you need some help?" as I start picking up papers for him. And he just freaks out as he's getting up in my face. Actually, he was small, so when I stood up, he was at my chest level. But he's pretty much yelling in my face, and he shouts, "Don't touch my stuff, nobody needs," and he pauses and looks me up and down, which for him he's practically at my ankle level, so it's mainly looking straight up for him. I'm just joking, but after staring me down for a second, he finished and said, "Your help." I was just being generous to this kid, and he was being rude, so I pushed this kid away from me because he was up in my face. And don't do this if you're in the situation, but I crumbled up the 4 or 5 pieces of paper I had in my hand, which was, I'm assuming, his homework. And me being a baseball player, I launched these papers in the opposite direction of the hallway we were heading to as far as I could, and told him, "Look dude, I was just trying to be nice, but since you want to act like that, have fun picking up your papers and being late to class." And then I walk off. Like I said, don't do this if you were in that situation. That was just what I did at the time. I was on time, like I said, by like 20 seconds, and I'm pretty sure he was late. Ever since then, we didn't really associate with each other. But anyways, back to the story. Me and James had this class together, unfortunately, so me and everyone in the class had to deal with him. James was the type of kid during class where he was either quiet with his face in his book, and anyone who disturbed him would feel his wrath, or he would have a debate with our teacher in the middle of her teaching everyone, and he would not let her teacher win. It all started when a kid in class who was apparently a master hacker for the NSA went back and found old pictures of James at a circus with a snake around his neck, and was showing it to everyone in the class. At the start of class, James was already heated over this, and so he was already in a bad mood. But like I was saying, we sit down on the comfortable couch next to the comfy chairs, and the para pulls up a regular chair from the regular desks in front of us. We were happy we could chill and have a good class, and then right next to us in the comfy chairs we see James get up from his seat and walk over and sit down next to us. We all kind of died inside, but we were fine, so we continued. Everyone was split up into 3 groups, so our para was reading to us, but not too loud, so the other para, which was a nice older substitute, reading to the other groups who wouldn't hear us. And James, as always, was reading in his head. For a while, we were doing our thing and James was doing his thing, but out of nowhere he just gets really mad asking the para to read in our head and to be quiet. We tell him to go back to his seat if he didn't want to hear us, and then he rolls his eyes and then proceeds to start reading out loud. It was kinda annoying, but the para continued where we left off, and this kid felt the need to read louder than the para and kept getting louder and louder as he kept reading. At this point, everyone was mad at him and telling him to shut up, and as he's arguing with them, the para, which is the substitute, walks over to him and taps him on the side and asks him to go somewhere else in the room, but he refuses and keeps arguing. A friend in another group speaks up and basically told him to be quiet and sit down somewhere else because he was being disrespectful to the sub, which was an older lady, like I said. James took it to heart and pretty much got up in my friend's face, arguing and pretty much insulting him. Now before I go on, I thought I'd describe my friend for some context. My friend is pretty tall. I'm 6 foot and my friend has a good 3 or 4 inches on me. He's athletic and he's very likely to go into the NBA, so he's not really someone to mess with. To add on to this, I was later told that in the locker room in 7th grade, James did pretty much the same thing and my friend kinda pushed him into this locker and pretty much ended it right then and there. Anyways, my friend stands up and basically tells James that he's not going to disrespect him too, and he better go sit down somewhere. And while this is all going on, the sub walks over, and as she's nicely placing her hand on James's back, she tells him to calm down and go sit back down. Immediately, he turns around, and as he's turning, he throws an elbow. I'm not sure if this kid thought he was the Karate Kid, or he'd been watching too much John Cena, but yes, this kid literally threw an elbow at the sub, and yelled, "Don't touch me," really loud, and throws a book at her. Even though she was right behind James, I'm pretty sure he'd never played sports in his life because he somehow managed to still miss the sub with the elbow and the book. It's good he did most of both because she didn't get hurt at all. I think it's pretty funny that she was point blank right next to him and he still failed. It was kind of weird because it all happened in slow motion, but yet it all happened so fast at the same time. I know I just contradicted myself, but I'm pretty sure y'all know what I mean. Like if something crazy happens such as a car wreck and you get that feeling. As that ends though, our para gets up and calls the office. And I'm not sure if we're the only school with these, but every classroom has a phone that calls straight down to the office in case of an emergency. And she used that phone. A girl in class stood up and yelled, "James, this is why you have no friends." And still he did. He gives everyone the Luigi death stare and speed walks out of the classroom. After this, everything was back to normal, other than the fact that the midget proceeded to kick down doors and use everyone as his punching bags for the rest of the day, and hid in the vents, and we had a school lockdown. This kid apparently turned into the alien and would attack all the SWAT officers, so the FBI came down to our school. It's rumored his last words were, "I be flossin'" while on a hoverboard. He then flipped his water bottle, dabbed, and hit his jewel before being sniped. The FBI then took him back to Area 51, and after a dissection, he turned out to be Tracer. I'm just joking, everyone, but after he stormed out and roamed the halls for a bit, he was took down to the office and later expelled. And I guess that's pretty much the same thing, but that's pretty much what happened. Alright everyone, that was today's story. I guess the moral of the story is be considerate of others and don't bully people. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to drop a like and leave your stories in the comments because I'd love to read them. And if I remember a similar story to yours, you'll basically get a free shout out because I'll tell that story and put your comment on screen. But alright everyone, thank you all for watching. Peace.